Now here's a bold sight that I never thought I'd see in my lifetime. Super Mario Bros. For the Sega Genesis. There have been various Mario games on the Sega Mega Genesis Drive thing, and pretty much all of them are of the bootleg pirated variety. Some are ports of Super Nintendo games, some are graphic hacks of other games, and others are their own thing. But then you have this thing put together in 2010 by someone under the name Martris, or I'm screwing that name up, I'm pretty sure, if the title screen's any indication. And unlike those other things, this is a straight up near one-to-one port, conversion, whatever, of the original Super Mario Bros. Video game that originally graced the Nintendo Entertainment System in 1985. This is not a port of Super Mario All-Stars, nor is it some drawn-up version that looks the part but doesn't quite play it. This is the same Super Mario Bros. That came out in 1985 on the NES, and it's a labor of love, I suppose, or maybe just a bit of a self-challenge to see if something like this could be pulled off, or all these things, I suppose. Regardless, this is a thing that exists, and is an indication that the end times are coming. Among other things these days, of course, but I digress. So I bought a reproduction card of this thing a year or so back, because I figured why not. It's one thing to play something like this on an appropriate emulator and such, but it's another to see something like this run on an actual Sega Genesis video game console, just for the visual confirmation of such a thing being possible. And so yes, this is a 35-year-old Nintendo game being run on a 30-plus-year-old Sega Mega Genesis Drive thing. It's a thing of beauty, and it's a thing that exists. And when I say near one-to-one conversion, I say that without an ounce of hyperbole, because the developer did a fine job replicating the experience to such a degree that, save for the audio component and some perhaps extremely minor hiccups, this feels like the exact same game. It could very well be the equivalent of playing the game on an NES emulator and such, but on Sega Genesis hardware. The way the game plays and controls, the way it functions in terms of the enemy patterns, physics, level layouts, and even some of the tricks such as warp zones and such, it's practically spot on. Well, okay, there's one thing different. You get a different minus world, which is basically 6-2, and then you die. Brilliant. Controls are simple. You use the D-pad to move around. Buttons A and C jump, while button B runs and shoot fireballs if you have them. So you can either work classic NES layout or the bootleg layout that was prevalent on a lot of those old-school pirate plug-and-play Famiclone things. And it's tight and responsive for the most part. And while the colors on screen seem a bit faded at points, at the very least the graphics matches those of the source material without so much as a slight enhancement aside from minimal flicker and slowdown, which is more due to more capable hardware than any programming prowess. The faded lines on screen, I assume, are more due to the video signal of the cable I'm using and not the actual game, because that's not something you replicate because it just looks ugly as sin whenever you try to fake something like that. Much like TV scan lines. Aside from that, it looks on point. The only thing that really gives it away is the audio, which is done using the Mega Drive sound processing deal, and while they've nailed some of the sound effects, the rest of the audio, the music, and some of the sound effects come across as odd sounding. The compositions of the game's few classic tunes are accurate and not reinterpreted, which is admirable, but the instrumentation feels off-putting and makes the tunes sound awkward. Now, if the quality of the audio bothers you, you could just mute the volume on your television and play it in silence, pop in a looping track of Mario in the background, and just let the good times roll, I suppose. Like I said before, I got this as a reproduction cartridge a few years back. I don't know if that's still an option today, but the ROM's been floating around for years out there, so if you want to give this a shot, you'll have to dig around a bit. Really, this is more of a novelty than anything else. A fun little project someone put together to try and recreate one ancient piece of software for another ancient piece of hardware. There are far easier and quite frankly better ways to play Super Mario Bros. These days, most of them involving something from a company called Nintendo, but for what it's worth, Super Mario Bros. Made the transition to Mega Drive smoothly and is something to be admired if nothing else, so kudos on that.